is John Colo with growingyourgreens.com. That have another exciting episode for you. Where we're at today at my friend's house. And for you guys that are long-term viewers, you guys will know that this is the house of my friends Dr. Rick and Karen Dina. They're doctors of chiropractic, and actually I helped them many years ago now. I'll put the links actually right down below to the videos I made at their place, actually helping them set up their raised beds in their backyard so that they can grow some food. And since I've been here, it's been many years, they've actually done a lot more. They've been growing even more food, expanded, did a lot of cool stuff. So what I'm here today to show you guys is the update video on how they're growing now, what they're growing now, how they're doing it, and more importantly, talk to Dr. Rick, the husband, and learn more about why they choose to grow their own food and why it's so important to them to grow some of the plants and, more importantly, eat the plants that they're growing here. So as you guys can see, this is their front yard, and since I've originally started coming over here, things have changed a lot in the front yard. Now they still have a lawn, which I would encourage them to get rid of. They want to keep their lawn because they kind of like fitting in, but at the same time they have a lawn, they also are using their front yard to their advantage. So number one, you'll see this big tree that's just starting to bloom out for the springtime. It's an amazing, beautiful black mission fig. And this thing, from the time that I started coming over, man, has gotten at least twice as big and twice as huge. Hopefully one day it just encompasses their whole yard where they can't even have any grass anymore. So they'll just have a big fig tree, but they've been getting lots of figs off this. Now, so besides just the fig tree here in the front of the house, I don't know if you guys can see, like right underneath the windows, they have 5 different citrus trees where they're growing things like lemons and other citrus fruits that they could eat. So, they're still growing some edibles despite having like an area with a lawn. Now, I would encourage even more edible ground covers that would kind of blend in and kind of look like, they really have a front lawn like everybody else. Like they have an area where there's a little walkway. You could put some nice little, I think it's a coarse-skin mint. It's like really small, tiny leaf mint that when you step on it, it smells like mint. It emits a nice fragrance that could be used as a nice ground cover. Along with, they have a nice rosemary plant here that bees are foraging on right now. They also have a lot of wood chips down, and they have a nice, a couple other landscape trees. But like even in the areas like down below some of the trees, you could plant a lot of different edibles, maybe more native wild edibles that you could eat. So this is their front yard, but let's go ahead to the backyard where they're growing the majority of the food here. So now I'm in Dr. Rick and Dr. Karen's kitchen, and we're about ready to head out to the backyard to show you guys the garden. But before I do, I really want to talk to you guys about the placement of your garden. I mean, I think it's really cool that we're actually in their kitchen. They could literally look out their backyard and they could see the majority of the food they're growing. So when they're preparing their meals, they could say, oh, well, we've got lettuce outside, we got tomatoes outside, we got bell peppers outside, and this will help them base their meals around what they're growing instead of, things that they're bought at the store and other organic produce items, right? So I want you guys to make your garden convenient and accessible to you guys. And that's why I like growing, whether that's in your front yard or your backyard, better than maybe say at a community garden down the street or a half-mile away or at some other property. Right? And of course, in your kitchen, you could also grow things like sprouts and microgreens, so you could even eat more of the most beneficial plant foods, the leafy greens. So next, I want to go ahead and take you guys out to their garden and show you guys around. So the first part of their garden that I'd like to share with you guys today is their wine barrel garden. And as you guys can see, they got 7 different half-a-wine barrels or whiskey barrels, whatever you want to call them, filled with organic compost, and they're growing a variety of different things. They got, my favorite, the purple perennial tree collards in a few of them. They got some sunchokes or Jerusalem artichokes in a couple of them that are actually starting to pop out. And a couple of them, they got some herbs like some mint and some, scallions or onion greens. And then they also have at the end one with the citrus tree in there. So even if you don't have a lot of space, you could grow in these wine barrels. They had these previously on their patio, then they kind of did some construction, and then they moved these guys around over to a more shaded spot in a more protected spot so they could have different microclimates, because some plants like to be in full sun and some may like shade. Also, this allows them to experiment and see, what grows better where. So all these tree collards actually looks like they're doing quite well. I think the challenge they're having is actually they're getting pretty tall. They're kind of bending over because they don't have stakes that are tall enough. Oh, and one of these guys actually also have some grapes, grapevine growing that's maybe currently flowering. It's quite interesting. All right, so let's go ahead and share with you guys the raised beds that I actually helped them build many years ago. So here are the main raised beds that I helped them build, and it's basically one straight one and then one that's curved like an L, and it looks like they're doing pretty well. We installed the irrigation pretty similar to the setup that I have, and they have a drip irrigation going on the top. And then they basically have the beds that are holding up quite well. They've actually had to, top them off with some additional compost every year. Right now it's kind of empty because we are in the spring season. They've pretty much just cleared it out and pulled the weeds and got all the fall/winter stuff out, and they're getting ready to plant their summer crops in, including, tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers, zucchini, all the different things they plant during the summer. So it's looking kind of barren. But one of the plants they still have left in here are the tree collards, the purple perennial tree collards. They're growing these guys everywhere. So I'm going to go ahead and do a close-up of one of their tree collard plants to show you guys how important of a crop it is for Drs. Rick and Karen Dina. So now what I'd like to show you guys are their tree collards. These are the purple perennial tree collards. I probably gave them actually this exact one here that's still growing in their garden after many, many, many years. And check it out how tall it is. Look how tall it is. I'm like maybe almost 6 feet tall. And this thing towers over me, pushing 10 plus feet. This is one of the tallest tree collard plants that I've seen, probably rivaling the tallest one that I ever grew myself. They've been keeping them really healthy. And this plant is just full of the leaves. So I'm going to go ahead and do a close-up on the leaves and show you guys why this plant is so valuable. So this is Dr. Rick and Dr. Karen's purple perennial tree collards that I originally gave them the plants. And this is pretty much their staple green because it grows year-round without any hassle, whether it's the summertime, the wintertime. These guys are always here and they always have greens on them. It's much like the oak tree that's above me. The oak tree is always here. It's always, growing. And same thing with these purple perennial tree collards. They're always here, so they always provide a source of food for Dr. Rick and Dr. Karen, whether they're going to juice them, blend them, or just actually cut them up and eat them in their salads. And that's why I really like this, because unlike standard annual crops that you got to plant the lettuce, and then you got to harvest it, and then it goes to seed, then you got to replant new lettuce seed to get the lettuce again. These guys you just plant once and they just grow literally like a tree. This thing's like 10 plus feet tall. So, especially if you're in maybe zone 8 and above, maybe in 7 if you keep it protected a little bit, or if you have a greenhouse in other zones, you could keep this guy alive year-round to have year-round food. I'm really into the perennial crops and hope that Dr. Rick and Karen would get a lot more perennial greens because, as busy as they are being chiropractic doctors, doing all kinds of different projects, I want them to have more perennials that they could just rely on, throughout the year without doing relatively little work. At the end of this episode, I'll be sure to interview Dr. Rick and ask him why the perennial tree collards are so important to him and his wife. So since I originally helped Dr. Rick and Dr. Karen build their original raised beds that are actually holding up quite nicely, they've expanded their garden and they made this additional raised bed. Instead of using the fence board like they originally used, they just basically got some, maybe 2x10 lumber, and it was a lot easier construction, a lot more solid. Did a similar drip irrigation system and put this bed in next to their house. So this is a much more shaded, protected spot. So, out in the regular garden that I just showed you guys, the raised beds are going to grow like, the summer crops, tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers, zucchini, things that flower. And then over in this side, they generally grow the lettuce in here so it doesn't get too hot for them, so they could have lettuce year-round. They pretty much went ahead and harvested all the lettuce from this last season they grew. They have 2 lone heads that they'll probably be harvesting real soon to eat. Now, as you guys can see, their compost has been sinking down a little bit, and I always encourage you guys to re-enrich your beds after every growing season with things like compost and rock dust and other, soil amendments. And be sure to check my past episodes for a really good video that I have on that. I'll actually put a link down below, this one if I remember. So now I want to share with you guys the little nursery area that Dr. Rick and Karen have set up here. And actually Dr. Karen's been busy at work propagating the tree collards, and it is really easy. So I want to show you guys actually how she's doing this and how she's creating all these little baby plants that she'll get to give to friends and family. So the first thing she's doing to propagate the tree collards is she just takes these old raw tahini jars from Artisan Organics that they've eaten the tahini and are just empty, and they put some water in there. And literally once they put the water in there, they then stick in the tree collard cutting. So as I like to recommend to people, they're doing the tip cutting, so the end of the tree collards, right where the main growth point is. You could do stem cuttings or tip cuttings. Tip cuttings, in my experience, are much better. They grow into a much better solid plant. They just literally take the cuttings and they stick it in water, and looks like this water hasn't actually been changed in a while, and so that's not even really a problem, because what you do is they just let it sit in here, and check out this. The tree collards, without any kind of rooting hormone, starts to grow their own roots, and she just lets them sit in here. I mean, she's busy traveling, doing all kinds of stuff, and they just sit in here. As long as there's water in here and they got water, they grow the roots. And she has all these little cuttings, babies in here, to grow more tree collards. And maybe she's trimming them, maybe a branch falls off, and she always takes the tops and puts them in here to make more. And then once they have some roots established, then she basically takes them and she puts them in a 4-inch pot with some dirt. And in here, these guys probably need some water, but as you guys can see, the roots are starting to come out the bottom of the dirt here, and they grow into a nice little plant. Now this could be given to people. And this is how easy it is to propagate the tree collard, so that you can have even more plants to give to friends and family or to sell. I think more people should propagate and get these out to people. That's a big need. I think it's sad that many people sell cuttings, and for a lot of people the cuttings don't strike or they don't take, because maybe they're too old or whatever. And hopefully one day somebody will actually start selling clones, or plants to people, so that they could have this amazing food crop. So the last thing I want to do in this episode is actually share with you guys how Dr. Rick and Dr. Karen are starting to make their own compost. So as you guys can see, this is their compost pile. They just basically put all the food scraps and yard waste, mixed up with leaves, and just pile it on and, turn it over and let it basically cook, and let the biology or the beneficial microbes in there break all that organic matter down to make good nutrition for their soil. Now, previously, they actually hadn't made their own compost. They just started doing this recently because the local compost company, Sonoma Compost, basically got shut down, and that's a whole nother topic, which is quite sad. And they took the yard waste here locally, kept it in Sonoma County, made some high-quality, organic, certified compost, and then would sell it back at a quite affordable price. And actually, that's what my raised beds, and that's what Dr. Rick and Karen's beds are filled up with, majority, whatever, that's full of. And now they went out of business, and now all the green bins are actually shipped out of the county to get composted, and I don't even know how to buy or get that compost, and I don't even know if it's organic certified anymore, which is quite sad, or the quality. So now they want to keep it all local. They want to do it themselves, so I think it's great that they're composting. Now, the one thing that I would recommend, and I see a lot of people do not properly, is they have a lot of food scraps, and they just tend to put too much food scraps, which is a good nitrogen component, but they fail to put a lot of carbon. So they've been actually layering on, leaves along with the food scraps. But the thing is, you need a lot higher percentage of carbon, when adding the nitrogen. So just a few leaves here and there will not do it, in my opinion. It'd be better to get some wood chips, or even better yet, I use the compressed horse bedding pellets, which are kind of like the wood-burning stove pellets, but they're for horse bedding, so they don't have any additives in there. And I would add that to get a higher level of the carbon. The other thing I might do is, maybe this is in a nice sunny spot. Compost does not necessarily need a sunny spot. I would use this space, which they have in the past, to grow summer crops such as zucchini. I would use this to grow crops and move my compost pile over to a shady spot of the yard that isn't not really effective at growing things. Maybe I'd also make some kind of enclosure to enclose the compost and keep, unwanted animals out, and maybe even get some kind of compost tumbler. but that's not necessary. They could still do it outside. And the other thing I'd recommend to them is aerate the pile. So the easiest way is to get a PVC pipe, drill holes in it, and just stick it in the bottom so that we'll get some natural aeration of the compost. And if you want to take it to the next level, you can get a blower and blow air through that perforated tube to really get some air in there, because when the bacteria in there gets the air, they really start working faster to turn your compost piles much faster, so you have compost sooner rather than later. Because I know some people, they just pile up their stuff and even after a year it's not broken down yet. Well, that's because two things: not enough aeration, not turning it properly, and not the right ratios of the compost. So the next thing I want to do for you guys is actually take you guys and interview Dr. Rick Dina, one half of the Dr. Rick and Karen duo, and ask him some questions on why they decided to start a garden, how important those tree collards are, and why they include copious amounts of plant foods in their diet. So now I'm here with Dr. Rick Dina and his wife, Dr. Karen Dina, who's not here today. They have this garden, beautiful garden in their backyard, and so we're going to ask them some questions. So Dr. Rick, why did you and Dr. Karen decide to put in a garden in your backyard? I mean, it's a huge undertaking, as you guys could check actually in the videos down below when I helped you guys make it.
It was definitely an undertaking, but well, number one, you inspired us. John is a really good influence, inspiring us to get a bunch of beds in here and get the tree collards and whatnot. Secondarily, my wife loves plants. She used to grow a garden growing up in Connecticut, and she'd have kale coming up through the snow in the winter. She studied a whole bunch of botany as part of her biology undergrad degree, so we always knew we wanted to have a garden. So I guess between her and John and some other friends, our friend Don Weaver was a good influence on us as well. It's awesome having fresh local food right here in your own backyard, and to us it's part of the bigger picture of healthy eating and a healthy lifestyle, which I think we can get into a little bit more, but having fresh, whole, natural plant foods between these tree collards and other times of the year when we have tomatoes and squash and cucumbers and peppers and all sorts of other stuff growing, it's just, there's such a difference between the stuff we get from our backyard versus the stuff we get from the store. It's just so much fresher, so much more vital and alive, and we're just happy to have this fresh, local, vital food to eat.
Awesome. So let's talk about the tree collards. I showed all my viewers that earlier, and it's like one of the dominant greens actually you guys have right now in this off season before you start planting your summer crops. Why is it so important to you and Dr. Karen?
Well, again, John, you were a good influence on us. You told us about these tree collards, and as you saw from the previous footage, these things are the high rises, I call them, of greens. You don't just get a little plant there and then that's it. They go all the way up, and if we don't trim these things back when they get to 12 or 14 feet every now and then, they'd keep going beyond that, and then they start flopping over. So number one, we get an incredible yield per amount of garden space, and we're just here in suburban California. We don't have a huge amount of space, so the fact that they can go up vertically is just so great. And we have enough plants here that we pick a few leaves each day, and year-round we have fresh greens just about every day year-round. Now, going on to greens themselves, they're full of chlorophyll and all sorts of other phytonutrients, antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals. Of course, we followed the good advice with good compost in the soil and rock dust in there for all the minerals. And there are so many nutrients so abundantly concentrated in leafy green vegetables. So, that's another part of it too, just the fact that they're leafy green vegetables. And do we want to talk at all about some of the nutrients in them?
Yeah, sure. Why should people grow them, number one, and then eat them?
Yeah. So number one, any leafy green is going to be great for you. Number two, the cabbage family plants, collards, kale, we got some kale growing over there, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, all of these what they call cruciferous vegetables are incredibly nutritious and incredibly nutritious and incredibly important. Now, at the same time, there's a lot of controversy out there that they're bad for your thyroid. You're going to get fat if you consume these leafy greens because they're going to slow down your thyroid, and you're going to get hypothyroid and fat, and your cholesterol is going to go up, and you're going to lose your hair. You're going to have all sorts of problems. So people avoid these things. Now, here's the ironic part. There's a group of phytonutrients in these raw cruciferous vegetables, especially when they're raw, not as much when they're cooked, called, it's a mouthful here, they're called isothiocyanates. And some of you have heard out there have heard of this substance called sulforaphane. It's probably the most well-known isothiocyanate. So these group of phytonutrients, on the one hand, are extremely cancer protective. There have been some studies looking at raw cruciferous vegetable consumption versus cooked cruciferous vegetable consumption. Both are strongly associated with more of those vegetables, lower risk for cancer. But the raw ones have an even bigger difference. They're even better because they have these isothiocyanates in them. So they're extremely cancer protective. That's awesome. At the same time, these same chemicals are thought, and thought is the key word here, to potentially, another key word, block the uptake of iodine. And your thyroid gland needs iodine to make its main product called T4. It's a tyrosine and 4 iodines attached to make T4, and then your body takes an iodine off and it makes T3. And T3 is the most metabolically active thyroid hormone that runs your metabolism. So there is one case history in the scientific literature where an 88-year-old woman presented to a hospital in New York City in a coma. And in her case, it was called a myxedema coma because her thyroid function got so low, she went into a coma. Now, the family, or the doctors asked the family what was going on there, and the woman had been eating 3 to 4 pounds of raw bok choy every day for the last several months in order to try to help reverse her type 2 diabetes. So in that case, I'm going to strongly speculate that her iodine status was very weak in the first place. And then she added all those things on top of there, all the bok choy with the isothiocyanates that probably blocked iodine uptake even more, and that was very bad in her situation. John's inspired us to make some YouTube videos also, and I made a YouTube video. If you go to my channel, Dr. Rick Dina, my YouTube channel, I've got a picture of a cauliflower on one side of my head and a few tree collard leaves on the other, talking about my consumption of raw cruciferous vegetables it was over 27 years at the time, it's been 29 now, compared to various thyroid panels that I've had done. And my thyroid's doing great, and I'm protecting myself from cancer and other things by eating these vegetables. So please do not be afraid of these incredibly nutritious foods, because there's a tiny speck of truth that people blow up way out of context and try to limit your diet and limit good things from them. These are incredibly awesome foods to be consuming regularly.
Awesome, Dr. Rick. Thank you. Another thing I want to talk about is, especially with the leafy greens and other plant foods, can you get enough protein from them? Because people are so concerned about getting enough protein. If they just ate greens and foods from their garden and provided they got enough calories, are they going to get enough protein, or are they going to starve and waste away?
They are absolutely, positively going to get enough protein. In fact, here's a challenge for all of you. Go to someplace called cronometer.com, CRONOMETER.com. Pick an adequate amount of calories from whole natural plant foods, fruits, vegetables, and nuts and seeds. And then see how much protein is there and see how much all of the essential amino acids are there. And you will find that you have got to go out of your way to do something really silly that you probably couldn't do anyway in terms of nutrition to not get enough protein. So there's always enough protein there. That's really nice. The leafy green vegetables are especially high in protein. Depending on the leafy green, you got 20, 30, 40% of the calories in here from protein. So even though there's not a lot of calories in here, the percentage of protein is so high that a couple hundred calories worth of them gets you a lot of protein. And for additional information about that, if any of you want to learn so much about the solid, scientifically based, well-experienced view of raw food nutrition, including protein, Dr. Karen, who isn't here because she's helping out her 90-year-old dad, helping his brain work well by eating healthy food, isn't here, but she wrote a book that I helped with last year called the Raw Food Nutrition Handbook, and chapter 4, I actually wrote that chapter on where do you get your protein. and it just lays everything out very thoroughly, very clearly, all sorts of bar charts with all the stuff analyzed. So after you read that, you should never be confused about where do you get your protein again. So a good resource there.
Awesome. Yeah, I want to say that I do recommend their book. I have a copy. I've read it at length, actually, and I'll put a link down below to their website. You can learn more about Drs. Rick and Dr. Karen and their book that could help you actually eat healthier. So what are some ways that people could really increase the volumes of the greens they eat? Because most people might have a salad with, 10 leaves or something like that, but they don't eat good volumes. I mean, think about it. Where do cows get their protein? They eat grass. Well, hopefully they're eating grass if they're free range. Nowadays they're eating genetically modified corn and soy, which I don't recommend. But they just sit there and eat grass all day, and I'm not going to sit here and eat grass all day, so how can somebody really pack in more greens and other healthy plant foods into their diet?
All right, well, John, you are the man when it comes to juicing and blending. So you could probably answer this question better than I could, but I will certainly say as a clinician who deals with people, goes over their lab work, tries to make sure that they're getting all the nutrients they need and being as healthy as possible, I can't emphasize enough how much I just push the vegetables. They are so incredibly important on any kind of diet. You need lots of vegetables. So, number one, gigantic salads are really helpful. And a typical salad for me, in that, I don't know, it's got like 2 or 3 pounds of vegetables. That's a huge amount. It takes a half an hour to eat, but it's really filling. You get nice and full. You got so many good nutrients in there. You don't crave other things, and you don't have too many calories. You have just the right amount. So number one, giant salads are really important. And I think probably what you were getting at before, John, is that, yeah, we don't have all day. Like cows can eat grass all day. And we got to go to work. We got schedules. We got to pick up our kids
garden,
and take
man.
them to practice. Right.
YouTube videos.
Spend time in the garden. Right. All those life activities. We can't spend our entire day eating enough vegetables to get enough calories. And even if you were that motivated, you probably don't have enough room in your stomach. So what comes in handy? Adding vegetables to a fruit-based smoothie, for example. So typical smoothie I might make almost every day. A couple oranges, some ripe bananas, several of these tree collard leaves, like we'll pick 4 or 5 of the really big ones that are up above, and throw those in the blender. And some frozen fruit in there, some berries typically, and it tastes really good. It's still nice and sweet. You don't even really notice the greens are in there other than it turns them all green, but you get a good dose of greens in there and a lot of nutrients. So John, of course, can tell you way more about all the blenders out there and the pluses and minuses and how much noise they make and how fast they go and all that stuff. So blending is a great way to get more greens in. Juicing is another great way to get a whole bunch of greens in. So this morning I picked about 15 of the really big tree collard leaves. I put them together with some cucumbers, some celery, and some carrot, and it made a couple of quarts of green juice that I'm going to drink throughout the day today, and that's all I'm going to have today. Every now and then I like to just give my body a break and just have juice and that type of thing. So juicing is an incredibly good way to get more of those greens in. And another thought is that steaming these vegetables are really handy. So if I can diverge a little bit and use the classic example of broccoli. How much raw broccoli can you really eat, even if you're really motivated? It's kind of chalky. I don't dislike the taste, but it's not my favorite. Maybe I could eat a head of raw broccoli, and I'm pretty motivated. I mean, I eat mostly fresh fruits and vegetables and been doing that for almost 30 years here, so I might eat a head of raw broccoli. But if I lightly steam the broccoli and it turns a brighter color and it gets softer, I could easily eat 2 heads of steamed broccoli, and a few nutrients you lose a little bit of, but the stuff's still so incredibly nutritious. And I think by eating 2 heads of steamed broccoli versus 1 head of raw and enjoying it much more, I come way out ahead nutritionally. So steaming, juicing, blending, and giant salads are the best ways to increase the level of greens in your diet, in my opinion.
Excellent, excellent, Dr. Rick. Yes, I would recommend, if you guys are going to be steaming your greens, I would recommend, pre-cutting them first before you steam them for higher levels of nutrition. So, Dr. Rick, why are eating plants so important, and more people should eat more plants instead of all the processed foods, the junk foods, the genetically modified foods, and even animal foods in excess, like many people do today in America and around the world nowadays, unfortunately?
Wow, so how many hours do we have to
well, I don't know, give a pretty concise, quick answer for everybody, just to kind of let them know the hard facts about why, growing your own food and eating it and eating more plants is really important.
Yeah, well, part of the reason I asked that question was not just to ask John, but to let all of you know there are so many reasons, and we could talk about it for so long. Whole natural plant foods are full of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, phytonutrients, and we could pick one vitamin and talk about it for a long time. One phytonutrient, talk about it for a long time. One antioxidant, talk about it for a long time. So they are full of an abundance of nutrients. They're very high in dietary fiber. So whether you're talking about keeping your cholesterol levels at bay, helping your digestive system work well and keeping things regular, feeding your intestinal microbiome and having all the healthy flora in there, and so many other things, production of short-chain fatty acids that do all sorts of important things in the body, and any of those things we could talk a long time for. The fiber is so incredibly important. Fiber also helps bulk up food and make it bigger for the same amount of calories. So you can feel just as full and not consume an excessive amount of calories. I mentioned my salad in the evening is huge. I mean, you're so full eating that, and I've got 300 or 400 or 500 calories if I put some nuts and seeds in the dressing in there. So, and eating the right amount of calories is so huge because you don't form as many dietary advanced glycation end products, you don't form as many free radicals, you're not cross-linking your various tissues in your body together, making them stiff, on and on and on. So lots of nutrients, lots of fiber, low calorie intake, and they tend to be a lot easier to digest than processed foods and animal-based foods, which means your body's ability to heal itself is allowed to express itself more fully. So when you let your bodies heal itself, you get lots and lots of what you need, and you get the right amount of calories, incredible things can happen. And people can reverse diabetes, autoimmune disease, lower their cholesterol, lower their blood pressure, prevent cancer, sometimes even reverse it, depending on the situation. All sorts of just incredible things can happen. So that's it in a real condensed version, that there's just so much more to talk about.
Wow. Yeah, I'd love to have more time with you and maybe do a dedicated episode about all the benefits if you guys want it. So hey, if you guys want that, give this video a thumbs up. Tell me know. If I get a bunch of them, I'll come back and interview Dr. Rick more about this topic if I know that you guys are interested in it. So Dr. Rick, I want to get into the next topic is, what dietary lifestyle do you and Dr. Karen, recommend the patients that come to consult and see you?
Well, first of all, a lot of the patients that come to see me are already involved in a plant-based lifestyle that includes a lot of raw foods. They find me through that niche and through those communities. But I also deal with people just starting out on the path. And there are a couple of different schools of thought on that. One is, just go cold turkey and overnight start juicing and blending and eating big giant salads and making fresh fruit smoothies and eating fruit directly, which is delicious and most of the way I eat fruit normally anyway. And just go for it. And you start to feel good and you have incentive to keep going. More people, and I'm in this camp as well, recommend that you start where you are. So let's say you're going to McDonald's every day. Pick one day a week that you don't go to McDonald's and you make something at home that's healthier. And you start with that. And what people notice, as long as they're not just doing token things, as long as they're doing things that are meaningful and are going to start to make a difference, what happens then is you start to feel better. And at the same time, you're introducing yourself to some new foods that you didn't know about before, and you actually start to like them. And then you're feeling better without deprivation. And then you have incentive to want to do more. Okay, let me cut out a few more fast food meals and have a little bit more of that healthy stuff in its place. So you're cutting out junk, preservatives, refined carbohydrates, cholesterol, too much saturated fat, trans fats, FD&C yellow number 6. And you're cutting all that stuff out while simultaneously putting more fiber, phytonutrients, all sorts of good stuff in your system, lowering your calorie intake to an appropriate level, and you start to feel better and better. You have more energy. You wake up more easily in the day. You your brain is more clear. You can think better. When there's emotional stress, you can deal with it better. You feel more at ease. You feel more at peace. Then you go to get some lab work done. You go back to your doctor. Your blood pressure's lower. Your cholesterol's coming down. You're getting off your medications. And then by doing that, and you keep doing more and more and kind of, making 10 to 20% changes, before you know it, you're eating really well. Keep tuning into John's channels and getting educated about what the next step is. And you go about that. It may take you a few months. It may take you a year or two, but all the while you're getting healthier. And then, because we're all human, and none of us, I've never met anyone that just went cold turkey overnight and was perfect for the rest of their life, never had stress come up, never wanted to go to a social event, all that type of stuff. So when those inevitable times come up, when we're human and you might want to eat something a little more dense or whatnot, then you've got this whole trail of other things to go back to. Whereas if you just go cold turkey, you go back to McDonald's because that's what you're familiar with. So I would say, be happy that you're starting on the path and just start making some changes and look at the glass as half full instead of half empty. Commend yourself for what you're doing, enjoy the benefits, and continue to go at a reasonable pace. Don't just take what I'm saying and, transition for 10 years. I'm drinking 8 beers a night instead of 9. They have to be meaningful changes. And if you go about that, I think you can get where you want to be. And so those are my thoughts there.
Awesome, Dr. Rick. Thank you. Yeah, so I recommend, just go slowly. And what I really want you guys to do is include more of the foods you're growing. You guys are all gardeners, and it makes me sad when I go to different gardening events around the country, actually, and they're serving a lot of junk food there, and we should really get back to eating the fruits and vegetables that we're growing. And I want you guys, no matter where you guys live, to eat something out of your garden like every day, like Dr. Rick's doing, like I do, right? Even if it's not like all your meals is coming out of your garden, hey, that's great, that's my goal one day. But you could make, a solid meal or two, or have, greens in your juice. And you're not growing the other stuff right now, like the cucumbers, because it's not summertime, you got to buy them. But you're having greens from your garden, having some herbs in your seasoning in your nightly salad, and you're having lettuce out of your garden for your salad at night. And this is just simply what I do, and fill in with other, fresh fruits and vegetables from the store, hopefully organic. So,
So in other words, make these things staples, not just garnishes, not just the little side dish. That's cool, right? Some fresh food in your diet's way better than no fresh food. But get this stuff being the main part of your dish. And, less of the other things. And you can still enjoy other things. The more of this stuff, you'll feel better, and it's worth it when you feel so good.
That's awesome, Dr. Rick. Yeah, so I know one of the projects you have upcoming, Dr. Rick, is you're doing this summit where you're getting 20 plus people that have been living a healthy lifestyle for, I think over 20 years, most of them, and to educate people for free on how to eat healthy and get started on this journey and how to stay healthy over the long term. You want to tell my viewers more about this if they're interested?
Absolutely. Sure. So thanks for asking about that, John. Yes, so we have an upcoming free online event called the Raw for Life Summit. And in this particular case, we've got 25 or so people who have been eating a plant-based diet based on raw fruits and vegetables, like this stuff we're sitting right in front of, for 18, 20, and in some cases 30 or 40 years. So people who have really kept up a super healthy lifestyle over the long term. And we have one interview each day, and we ask the people what they eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, what has inspired them to start eating healthy in the first place, and what inspires them to continue. And they go through that. They talk about the reasons, their motivation, how strict they are versus flexible they are. And there's different opinions out there depending on the person. But everybody has been keeping this up for, I think we have a few people at about 18 years. The average is probably about 30 years. So people 25, 30 or more years. And what has allowed them to keep this up successfully over the long term. Because new enthusiasm is one thing, but someone's a few years in, you don't know if they're going to make it long term or not, or if the way they're thinking or the approach they're taking is going to work for them long term. But when someone's been at this 25, 30 or more years, they've stood the test of time, and they probably have some good wisdom. So we've got an entire event based around a bunch of those people.
So I think one of the things that's really important, like how I learn about gardening, is I experience it a lot, so by doing it. But number two, I visit so many people and talk to so many people that know more than me, so I could learn what they've been doing and do that myself. Because what I believe is success leaves clues, right? So people have been doing something for a long time, whether they're gardening, eating healthfully. Maybe you should listen to them at least a little bit, even if you're not going to change your diet overnight or whatever. Take some of the suggestions that you'll probably hear in this upcoming free, summit that Dr. Rick has going to improve your life. And that's why I simply make these videos. Anyway, so if you want to learn more about this summit, I'll put a link down below this video. Also, I'll have it come up right across here, the special link you're going to want to go to sign up for this free summit. I definitely would highly encourage you guys to, sign up for that. So last thing I'd like to ask you, Dr. Rick, today is there any other comments or thoughts that you'd like to share with my viewers today?
Yeah, I guess just to sum up, growing your own food is awesome. And John, you've definitely inspired us. Between my wife's interest in gardening already and John helping us with the beds and the irrigation and all the stuff, initially, growing your own food is so important. But make sure that to get the most out of the food you grow, you keep it in the context of overall healthy diet and lifestyle. Because just doing a few token things is a little bit helpful, but bigger changes are going to get you bigger results. So I think make this a staple in your diet, keep the other things in your diet healthy, and try to lead a healthy lifestyle. And you can do all that without feeling deprived. And then you really enjoy your life. Then healthy eating becomes a means to an end, and the end is enjoying your life. And it doesn't just become this struggle, because it really doesn't have to be that way. Yes, it's challenging, but it's absolutely worth it. So I'll confirm John's message and tell you all to go for it. It's worth it. You don't have to be perfect, but the more you go for it and the more you do, the better you're going to feel, the better health you're going to have, the more you're going to enjoy your life, and the longer you'll live, too. So it's hard to go wrong.
Awesome, Dr. Rick. Yeah, thank you so much. The last thing I want to say is that Dr. Rick does do counseling, so if you're in the place where you need to talk to a doctor and who could help you get on the right path, you're maybe not so healthy, and he could basically help you wherever you're at to transition to get healthier. Can you let them know about your website, your wife's website, and your counseling services?
Sure.
Real quick?
Well, thank you very much for for bringing that up. So we have two websites. One of them is called rawfoodeducation.com, and from there you can access our blog with all sorts of articles about nutrient contents of different foods and recipes from them, and all the benefits and that type of thing. You can also access each of our YouTube channels, where we're not as big as John's, but we have a lot of good videos on different topics like raw cruciferous vegetables and thyroid function, and where do you get your protein, and about vitamin B12 and all sorts of stuff, as well as our Instagram and Facebook and other stuff. So Raw Food Education. We have another website called rawfoodconsulting.com, and it's not just for people who just eat raw food. It's for people interested in including more fresh fruits and vegetables in their diet in context of a healthy lifestyle. And there I'm sort of a virtual clinician in that I work with people over the phone and via Skype. And if you're in the United States, I can even order lab work for you, and we can look at what your complete blood count and metabolic panel and lipid panel and thyroid function and all those things look like. And based on that, I can help guide people toward healthier eating in a very specified and intelligent way that's individualized to help you out specifically. So I really enjoy working with people in that way as well. So. And some people, especially for those of you out there that are already on the vegan or vegetarian path, it can be difficult sometimes to wonder, some lab work would be good, but if I go to my local doctor, that big fat guy's going to yell at me because I'm not eating meat, and if I have any kind of health issues, they're going to tell me that's the reason why, and so it doesn't sound appealing. But if you'd like some professional guidance from someone who's not going to yell at you and encourage you to eat more fruits and vegetables, but also isn't just some newbie on YouTube spouting off rhetoric and is going to give you good, solid, logical advice that's individualized, I would be more than happy to be of assistance.
Yeah, I would recommend Dr. Rick if you're looking for somebody to help you out with the blood work and the nutritional counseling. He's definitely my go-to guy if I have some issues that come up in my life as well. So
And we have a few other good ones on the summit as well.
yeah,
I'm not the only one.
Yeah, once again,
there's not many of us, but I'm one of a few. But there's a few more.
check that link right down below. Sign up for that free summit to hear from all the experts that Rick will have coming up real soon. Also, be sure, if you like this video, to give me a thumbs up. I'll come back to Dr. Rick and Dr. Karen. Maybe she'll be in town next time, and interview them in further detail about, why eating healthfully, and show you guys updates of their summer garden and all kinds of cool stuff. Also, be sure to check my past episodes. I have over 1,100 episodes now, teaching you guys all aspects, how to grow your own food. Once again, down below this video, I'll put links to the previous visits at Dr. Rick's house on how I helped him get started and all this kind of stuff, and a few other updates I've made here. And also be sure to click the subscribe button right down below. Don't miss out on any of my episodes. I have new episodes coming out about every 3 to 4 days. You never know where I'll show up or what you'll learn on my YouTube channel. So once again, my name is John Collard with growingyourgreens.com. We'll see you next time. And remember, until then, keep on growing. All right, this is John Collard with growingyourgreens.com. Today, I have another exciting episode for you coming at you from my backyard garden today. And today, we're going to go ahead and answer your guys' questions. So, I apologize